The great council room was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The walls stretched up so high they seemed to touch the stars themselves. Strange lights danced across the ceiling, showing pictures of dying worlds and broken fleets. Ambassador Taiho Kim stood near the center, trying not to feel small next to the giant alien creatures around him. The bug-like Vector were as tall as trees with sharp claws that clicked when they moved. The crystal beings called Luminari glowed with soft colors that changed when they talked. Other aliens filled the room. Some looked like walking rocks, others seemed to be made of pure energy. All of them looked scared. Commander Swapark appeared on the big screen in front of everyone. Her face was dirty and tired. She had been fighting the enemy for months without rest behind her. Taiho could see the ruins of what used to be a beautiful space station. Now it was just twisted metal and broken dreams. The Kepler defense grid has fallen, Commander Swa said. Her voice was heavy with sadness. We lost 12 whole worlds in just one day. The Devourers are not just taking our planets. They are eating everything. The stars themselves are going dark. Taya felt his hands shake as he watched the display screen. It showed a map of their galaxy with red marks spreading like a disease. Each red mark was a place where the Devourers had attacked. Nothing was left in those places, not even empty space, just nothing at all. The Vector Queen made clicking sounds with her mouth parts. Our best weapons do nothing to them, she said. When we shoot at their ships, they just get stronger. They learn from every attack we make. It is like fighting our own shadows. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community. For 50 years, most aliens still thought humans were primitive and weak. They had faster ships and better weapons than Earth. But now the humans were some of the only ones still fighting back. It was strange how the weakest species had become the strongest fighters. Dr. Minho Choi stepped forward, holding data tablets in his shaking hands. He was Earth's smartest scientist, but even he looked confused by what they were facing. The Devourer ships work in ways we do not understand, he said. They seem to exist in normal space and somewhere else at the same time. That is why our weapons cannot hurt them. But then Dr. Minho said something that made everyone pay attention. We found something interesting about human brainwaves. When our pilots fight the Devourers face to face, something strange happens. The enemy ships start to act confused, like they cannot think straight. The room became very quiet. Captain Ji-Won Lee had just returned from a big battle. Her uniform was burned and torn. She nodded at what Dr. Minho said. I have seen this happen. When human crews get close to enemy ships, the Devourers stop working together. They make mistakes they never made before, but it only lasts a few minutes. The crystal luminari began to glow brighter with worried colors. The old prophecies speak of a final weapon, she said in a voice like wind chimes, but the cost would be terrible. A whole species would have to die to create enough power to stop the Devourers across many star systems. Taiho felt every alien eye looking at him. The unspoken question hung in the air like smoke. Would humanity be willing to die to save everyone else? They had tried everything else. Superweapons failed. Peace talks were impossible. Most people could not be saved. In time, through the big window, Taiho could see his home planet Earth. Far below, millions of humans were down there living normal lives. Children played in parks, families ate dinner together, artists painted pictures of hope. None of them knew their leaders were talking about the end of humanity. We need time to think about this, Taiho said carefully, trying to keep his voice steady. We need to understand what this sacrifice really means. The Vector Queen focused all her compound eyes on him. Time is what we do not have, human, she said. Our scouts say the main Devourer fleet will reach the core worlds in 30 days. If we are going to do something, it must be very soon. When the meeting ended, Taiho walked through the memorial gardens. These gardens honored brave warriors from every species who had died fighting the Devourers. Each alien race had given their best soldiers, their smartest generals, their most skilled pilots. All of them had been consumed by the endless hunger of the Devourer fleet. He stopped at a simple stone with Korean writing on it. It was for the crew of the destroyer Incheon, who died in the first big fight with the Devourers. Captain Yuna Song had crashed her ship into an enemy cruiser, so 3 refugee ships could escape. The enemy learned how to stop such attacks within hours. But what if more ships did the same thing at once? What if instead of one ship, thousands of human vessels attacked together? What if humanity's strange brainwaves could be made stronger? across their whole fleet. The idea was both terrifying and hopeful. Tejo went back to his room and started writing a message to Earth. The choice would be up to humanity itself. Would they choose to be the galaxy's last hope, knowing that hope could only be bought with their complete destruction? Outside his window, the stars looked different now. Each point of light was a world that might live if humans chose right. The weight of an entire galaxy's future was on human shoulders that had proven to be surprisingly strong. Despite being so small, in the distance he could see the lights of alien ships all heading toward the outer rim to fight the Devourers. Some would return with stories of small victories, most would never return at all. The galaxy was bleeding, and only humans seemed to have the right blood type to save it. The communication device on his desk beeped with an incoming message from Earth President Hejin Nam's face appeared on the screen. "We have been monitoring the council meeting," she said. "Tell us what you really think. Can we do this?" Teo looked at the star map one more time. The red zones were growing bigger every hour. Soon they would cover everything. The Devourers would consume every world, every star, every possibility of life itself, unless someone stopped them. "I think we are the only ones who can," he said finally. "But the cost will be everything we are, and everything we could ever become." The president nodded slowly. "Then we better make sure it works." The transmission ended, leaving Tejo alone with the weight of impossible choices. Outside the memorial garden, the alien races continued their preparations for war. But deep down, they all knew conventional warfare had failed. Only something beyond war, beyond logic, beyond self-preservation could save them. Now that something was humanity, and humanity was about to face the hardest choice any species had ever been asked to make. The next day brought worse news. Commander Swapark transmitted another report. The Devourers had reached the Centauri system. Entire colonies were vanishing in minutes, not hours. The enemy was accelerating their advance. Tejo watched the tactical displays showing the enemy's path toward the core worlds. The mathematics were simple. At their current speed, the Devourers would reach Earth in less than 3 weeks. Every day of delay meant millions more lives lost. But rushing into the ultimate sacrifice without proper preparation could doom the entire galaxy. If the human neural network failed to synchronize properly, the Devourers would adapt and humanity's death would be meaningless. The weight of time pressed down on every decision. Every hour spent in preparation was an hour the enemy gained ground. Every moment of hesitation cost lives across the galaxy. Yet Tejo knew that humanity's choice would echo through history. If they chose to sacrifice themselves, they would save trillions of lives across thousands of worlds. If they chose to flee or fight, conventionally everyone would die together. The stars outside his window seemed to pulse with urgency. Each one represented worlds full of thinking beings who deserved a chance to live and grow and dream. The responsibility was overwhelming, but humanity had already proven they could bear burdens others could not. Tomorrow he would return to Earth to present the galaxy's request to his own people. The fate of consciousness itself would rest on what humanity decided the universe was about to discover. What humans were truly capable of when everything depended on their choice. The emergency meeting room deep under Geneva was filled with the most important people on Earth. President Hejin Nam sat at the big curved table looking tired and worried. Reports were coming in from human colonies all across space, and none of the news was good. General Wujin Kang appeared as a blue hologram from Mars Defense Command. His image flickered as he spoke. "The outer colonies are still holding, but just barely. Our pilots keep reporting the same strange thing when they get close to Devourer ships. Something weird happens to the enemy. They start acting confused, like they forgot how to fight." From Jupiter Research Station, Dr. Yunji Lee's voice came through the speakers. "We have been studying the quantum wave patterns. Human brains work in a way that creates interference with the Devourer network. It is not just our ships or weapons, it is us. Our minds, our very thoughts create ripples that mess up their thinking." The news hit everyone like a lightning bolt. Humanity was not just another species fighting for survival. They were the key to stopping an enemy that had destroyed countless worlds across the galaxy. But using that key would cost them everything. Captain Doyun Park had fought the Devourers 15 times and lived to tell about it. He leaned forward in his chair. "I have felt it during battle. When we get close to their ships, my crew gets headaches and feels dizzy, but they also feel something else. like we are connected to something big and important. In the universe, Dr. Xiaoyan Zhang from the Consciousness Research Institute had been studying these reports for weeks. What we are seeing suggests that human brain patterns evolved differently from other species. While aliens developed mind reading or super strength, we developed something that messes with artificial intelligence. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as people tried to understand what this meant. Humanity had always wondered why they seemed ordinary compared to other species. The bug aliens could share thoughts, the crystal beings could control energy directly. The phase creatures could walk through walls. Humans seemed boring next to all that. We are not boring, President. Nam said quietly, we are quantum ghosts. Our consciousness exists in a way that artificial minds cannot understand or fight against. Admiral Jinsu Kim looked at the battle reports spread across his table. The enemy adapts to everything: energy weapons, kinetic attacks, even exotic matter weapons, but they cannot adapt to something that exists outside their understanding of how minds work. The weight of the galaxy's request pressed down on everyone in the room. They were not being asked to send ships or weapons or soldiers. They were being asked to give their entire species as a living weapon against an enemy that threatened all life. Dr. Minjae Choi, who studied philosophy as much as science, spoke carefully. Throughout history, humans have faced extinction many times: ice ages, asteroid impacts, diseases, wars. Each time we found a way to survive through working together and making sacrifices, but this is different. We are not being asked to sacrifice some humans to save humanity. We are being asked to sacrifice all humans to save everyone. Elsa's silence stretched on as each person thought about what that really meant. Outside the bunker, billions of humans lived their normal lives, going to work, raising children, creating art. None of them knew their leaders were deciding the fate of not just their species, but every thinking being in the galaxy. Commander Hannah Yu had just returned from the Centauri front, where she saw what the Devourers did to captured worlds. I have seen what happens when they take a planet. They do not just strip away the rocks and metals, they consume the very essence of what makes life possible. The quantum patterns that allow consciousness to exist get absorbed into their network. Those worlds become dead zones where nothing can ever think or feel again. The meaning was clear: if humanity refused to act, the Devourers would eventually consume them anyway, along with every other thinking creature in the galaxy. But if they acted, they could save trillions of lives across thousands of different species. President Nam stood up slowly. We need to understand exactly how this would work, Dr. Lee. How would this quantum disruption be used? The effect would need to happen all at once across all of human space. Yunji explained every human would need to focus their mind at the same time, creating a wave of interference that would spread through quantum space faster than light. The disruption would hit the Devourer network before they could adapt to it. And the cost? Admiral Kim asked, even though he already knew the answer. Total brain burnout across our entire species, Yunji said quietly. The effort required would literally burn out every human brain in the galaxy. We would stop existing as conscious beings. The room fell silent again. They were talking about the voluntary extinction of humanity to save the galaxy. It was a decision that would be remembered forever if there was anyone left to remember it, but there was something else to consider. Dr. Minho Choi had been studying the quantum readings. We are seeing that human consciousness can affect reality at the quantum level. If our minds can do that, what happens to our consciousness when we make this ultimate sacrifice? The question hung in the air like smoke. Some people wondered if consciousness could survive in some other form. Others believed that death was simply the end. But everyone agreed that the sacrifice would be real and permanent. From the agricultural worlds came reports that children were having strange dreams of flying through space and touching stars, dreams of becoming one with the universe itself. It was as if the human mind was already preparing for something beyond normal existence. The data kept coming in from research stations and military outposts. Every report confirmed the same thing. Human consciousness created interference patterns that the Devourer network could not handle. The effect was small with just one person, but it grew exponentially with more people. Dr. Suman Kim ran calculations on her computer. If every human in the galaxy focused their mind at exactly the same moment, the quantum wave would be powerful enough to crash the entire devourer network across multiple star systems, they would not be able to adapt because they would all fail at once. The mathematics were both beautiful and terrifying. A single human could create a tiny disruption. 1,000 humans could destabilize local space. 1 billion humans focusing together could rewrite the rules of reality itself, but the cost would be absolute. Every human, man, woman, and child would burn out their neural pathways in that moment of ultimate focus. They would save the galaxy by ceasing to exist. General Kang looked at the tactical displays, showing devourer movements. They are getting closer to the core worlds every day. If we are going to do this, we need to decide soon. President Nam called for a preliminary vote among the leadership, not to make the final decision, but to see where they stood. The results were sobering but clear. Most believed they had no choice. The enemy could not be stopped by conventional means. Every battle was just delaying the inevitable. The devourers adapted to every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. But they could not adapt to consciousness choosing to sacrifice itself for others. As the meeting ended, each person carried the weight of what humanity might choose to do. They would take this decision to every colony, every station, every settlement. Humanity would decide together whether to make the ultimate sacrifices. Stars outside looked the same as always. But now everyone knew they might be looking at them for the last time. As a conscious species, the universe was about to test human resolve in ways no species had ever been tested before, and somehow deep in their hearts they knew that humanity would find the strength to do what needed to be done. The transformation of human space began the moment the vote was finished. Every military base, research facility, and civilian center was converted into part of the largest neural network ever built. The project was called Final Dawn, and it would connect every human consciousness into a single galaxy-spanning quantum weapon. Dr. Minho Choi worked day and night in the converted laboratories beneath Seoul. His team was racing against time to perfect the consciousness synchronization protocols. We have one chance, he told his exhausted researchers. If the quantum cascade fails to spread properly, the devourers will adapt, and our sacrifice will mean nothing. Commander Yuna Song, named after the fallen destroyer captain, coordinated the military side of the operation. Every human settlement needs to be connected to the network. We are installing quantum resonance amplifiers on every world, every station, every ship. When the moment comes, no one can be left out. The scale of the work was incredible. Mining operations shifted to digging up the rare quantum crystals needed for the amplifiers' manufacturing centers. Retooled to build millions of neural interface devices, even children were fitted with simple connections that would let them join. The final moment from the Frontier Worlds reports came in of strange devourer behavior. Captain Dong-yoon Kim, patrolling the Outer Rim, sent disturbing video messages. They are not advancing as fast as before. It is like they can sense what we are. Preparing. Their formations are becoming more scattered, more defensive. The enemy reaction proved what the scientists had thought. The devourers were connected to quantum space in ways that made them sensitive to large-scale consciousness manipulation. They could feel the growing network of human minds preparing to strike. Dr. Sujin Lee, working on the consciousness mapping protocols, made a discovery that was both beautiful and terrifying. The synchronization process will be profound. Every human will experience the thoughts and emotions of every other human at the same time. For a brief moment, we will become a single unified consciousness spanning the galaxy. The implications were staggering. In their final moments, humanity would achieve something no species had ever done: true unity of thought and purpose, but that unity would exist only long enough to destroy itself. Master Sergeant Bongsik Park was training the final wave of volunteers. He spoke to his recruits with quiet dignity. We are not just soldiers anymore. We are guardians of consciousness itself. Every alien child who grows up to ask questions, every artist who creates beauty, every scientist who seeks truth, they will exist because of what we are about to do. The training was unlike anything in military history. Soldiers learned to focus their consciousness, to sync their thoughts with others, to prepare for the moment when their individual identity would dissolve into something greater. Meditation techniques from Buddhist monks were combined with advanced brain science to create warriors of the mind. Civilian populations went through their own preparation. Schools became training centers where children learned to focus their thoughts, families practiced synchronization. Exercises together, even the elderly and sick were connected to the network because every consciousness was equally valuable. The evacuation ships created their own challenges. Captain Seo Yoon, gang commanding the cultural preservation vessel Erring, struggled with the weight of her mission. We are carrying the memory of humanity to the stars. Every book, every song, every story our species ever created, but we are also carrying the guilt of survival. The 1,000 humans chosen for evacuation represented the best of human knowledge and culture. They would establish colonies in distant galaxies far from the devourer, a threat carrying the story of the species that chose extinction over surrender. As the final preparations continued, strange things began happening throughout human space. Reality seemed more fluid, more responsive to conscious thought. Children playing games found that their imagination could briefly affect the physical world. Artists discovered that their creative vision could manifest in small ways. The network is affecting local space-time, Dr. Minho reported to the Coordination Center. The concentration of synchronized consciousness is creating ripples in reality itself. We are becoming something new, something that exists partially outside. Normal physics workers across human space moved with perfect coordination even when they had never met each other. Thoughts and ideas flowed through the quantum network faster than light itself. Humanity was evolving into something unprecedented. In galactic history, the countdown to final dawn was measured in hours, not days. The Devourer main fleet had been detected approaching the core worlds. Their massive ships distorted space-time around them like black holes made of hunger. The enemy was coming and humanity was ready. In the final hours, messages poured in from across the galaxy. The Vrector Queen sent her gratitude for humanity's sacrifice. The Luminari composed light songs of remembrance. Even species that had never met humans directly sent their hopes and prayers. From the research stations came final reports confirming that the network was ready. Dr. Yoonji Lee transmitted from Jupiter Station. All quantum resonance amplifiers are online and synchronized. The neural interface network shows 100% connectivity. We are ready to begin Final Dawn. Children across human worlds began singing the same song at the same time. Though none of them had ever heard it before, the melody seemed to encode something fundamental about consciousness itself, about the choice humanity was making. Parents held their children close, knowing these were their last hours together as individuals. Soon they would all become part of something greater before fading into whatever came. After consciousness, the Devourer fleet accelerated its approach as if sensing the threat building in human space. Their perfect black ships seemed to absorb light itself, creating zones of absolute darkness wherever they passed. Admiral Jinsu Kim watched the enemy approach from the Solar Defense Fleet. We estimate 6 hours until they reach Earth. The network synchronization must begin soon, or we will lose our chance across human space. People said their final goodbyes, completed their last works of art, wrote their final letters to the stars. The evacuation ships prepared to jump to distant galaxies, carrying human culture to safety. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for humanity's final gift. Every alien species knew that in a few hours the humans would either save all consciousness or die trying in the depths of space. The quantum network hummed with the thoughts and dreams of 4 billion human minds. Soon those minds would unite in perfect harmony to create something that had never existed before, a weapon made of pure consciousness itself. The Devourers were about to learn that some things could not be adapted to or consumed. Some choices transcended the physical universe itself. Final Dawn was about to begin. The Great Assembly of New Earth was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Representatives from every human colony, station, and settlement, connected through quantum communication links, filled the massive hall. The decision facing their species could not be made by a few leaders. It needed the voice of every human alive. Colony Administrator Youngmi Park spoke from the farming worlds of Kepler 442. Her face on the screen showed worry and sadness. Our children keep asking questions we cannot answer. They want to know why the sky sometimes turns red, why ships keep leaving and never come back. How do we tell them we are thinking about this? From the mining stations near Proxima Centauri, Supervisor Taeyun Lee looked exhausted. The Devourers hit our outer platforms yesterday. We watched them eat not just the metal and rock, but the very space around them. Reality itself seemed to get smaller. Whatever these things are, they are not just destroying matter, they are destroying the possibility of anything existing. Dr. Suman Kim spoke from the research ship Sejong floating in deep space. We have confirmed the quantum interference effect. When our test subjects focused their minds in specific ways, we detected real disruptions in the quantum foam. The effect gets exponentially stronger with more participants. The mathematics were both elegant and terrifying. A single human could create a small disruption. 1,000 humans could destabilize local spacetime. Every human in the galaxy focusing at once could create a quantum wave that would spread across the entire galactic network instantly. Captain Sun Woo Choi had survived the disaster at Vega. He stood to address the assembly. I have seen the Devourers adapt to everything we throw at them: plasma cannons, antimatter missiles, even weapons that change the fundamental forces of physics. But there is something about human presence that makes them hesitate. It is small, but it is real. The philosophical questions were as important as the technical ones. Professor Carmen Yoon from the University of New Seoul raised the issue that haunted everyone. Are we talking about suicide, or are we talking about transformation? If our consciousness can affect reality at the quantum level, what happens to that consciousness when we make this ultimate sacrifice? From the frontier worlds came a different view. Governor Myung Kim of the Tau Ceti colonies spoke bluntly. Philosophy is something we cannot afford right now. The Devourers will reach the core worlds in weeks. If we do not act, every thinking being in the galaxy dies anyway. At least this way, consciousness itself might survive in other species. The debate went on for hours. Some people argued for running away to distant galaxies. Others wanted to throw everything humanity had at the enemy in one last desperate attack. But the math was clear. Nothing normal could stop an enemy that adapted to every attack. Dr. Ji-hoon Park, a quantum physicist from Luna Research Station, presented the most disturbing discovery. The Devourers are not just eating matter and energy, they are consuming information itself. Every world they take becomes a void in quantum space where nothing can exist. If they finish their conquest, they will not just rule the galaxy, they will unmake it. The revelation shocked the assembly. They were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for the right of reality to continue existing. Commander Naeon Lee spoke from the battleship Turtle ship. We held them at the Rigel system for 3 days, 3 days of constant fighting, and they adapted to every trick we used. By the end, our weapons were useless. The only thing that slowed them down was when our pilots flew suicide missions, making direct contact with their systems. The pattern was becoming clear. Human consciousness could disrupt the Devourer network, but only at the cost of the human making contact. Individual sacrifices had saved refugee fleets and bought time for evacuations, but to save the galaxy, the sacrifice would need to be total. President Nam had been quiet during most of the debate. Finally, she spoke. We are not just deciding the fate of humanity, we are deciding whether consciousness itself will survive. In this galaxy, if we refuse to act, the Devourers will consume us anyway, along with every other thinking being. But if we act, we can make sure that life, consciousness, and hope survive in trillions of other minds. The discussion moved to practical matters. How would the sacrifice work? What would happen to human culture and knowledge? Who would remember their choice? Captain Seo Yun Jang, commander of the Cultural Preservation Ship Arang, spoke about the evacuation plan. We have selected 1,000 humans to carry our memory to the stars. They will take our books, our music, our stories to distant galaxies far from the Devourer threat. Someone must bear witness to what humanity chose to do. The 1,000 evacuees would represent the best of human knowledge and culture. They would establish colonies beyond the galaxy, carrying the story of the species that chose extinction over surrender. As the debate continued, strange things began happening throughout human space. Reality seemed more responsive to conscious thought. Children playing games found their imagination could briefly affect the physical world. Artists discovered their creative vision could manifest in small ways. The quantum network humanity was building was already affecting local space-time. The concentration of synchronized consciousness was creating ripples in reality itself. They were becoming something new, something that existed partially outside normal physics. The final vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 68% of humanity chose to make the ultimate sacrifice for the survival of all other life in the galaxy. The 32% who voted against were not condemned. They would be honored by being assigned to evacuation ships and preservation duties. Someone needed to remember what humanity had chosen and why. As the assembly concluded, a strange calm settled over human space. The decision had been made. Now came the harder task of actually doing it. Children across human worlds began having the same dream they dreamed of, becoming stars of their thoughts, joining together to create something beautiful and powerful. The dreams were comforting, not frightening, as if their unconscious minds already understood what was coming. Scientists worked frantically to perfect the consciousness synchronization technology. Military commanders planned the logistics of connecting every human settlement. Artists and writers rushed to complete works that would preserve human culture for the evacuees. The galaxy watched and waited. The alien species that had dismissed humans as primitive now looked to them as saviors. The irony was not lost on anyone. The weakest species in the galaxy was about to become its greatest heroine. The depths of space. The Devourer fleet continued its advance. Their perfect formations and adaptive technology made them seem unstoppable. But they had never faced an enemy that could choose non-existence over defeat. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy something new about the power of conscious choice. When everything was at stake, when all hope seemed lost, consciousness itself could become a weapon more powerful than any technology. The countdown to humanity's final moment had begun. Across human space, people said goodbye to loved ones, completed unfinished business, and prepared for the most important decision any species had ever made. They were going to save the galaxy by choosing to leave it, and somehow that choice felt right. The synchronized pulse began at exactly 2:32 in the afternoon Galactic Standard Time, starting from every human settlement at the same moment. Across the galaxy, 4 billion minds focused their consciousness into a single unified purpose. The quantum cascade built slowly at first, then faster and faster as the network reached critical mass. Captain Ji-Yoon Lee aboard the command ship Dangan felt the moment when her individual consciousness began to merge with the collective connection established across all sectors. She reported, but her voice carried new harmonics that had not been there before. The network is beautiful. Dr. Minho Choi, monitoring the quantum readings from the coordination center, watched as his instruments registered energy patterns that should not have been possible. The cascade is moving faster than light through quantum space. We are not just creating interference, we are rewriting the basic properties of space, time itself. Throughout human space, the transformation was visible to anyone who looked. Aurora-like lights danced across the surfaces of airless worlds. Space itself seemed to shimmer with new colors that had no names. The boundary between mind and matter was dissolving on the farming world of Kepler 442. Administrator Youngmi Park stood in fields where crops now grew in perfect mathematical spirals, responding to the collective consciousness flowing through the quantum network. The children are singing, she reported with wonder in her voice. They are all singing the same song, but they have never heard it before. From the mining stations of Proxima Centauri, Supervisor Taeyun Lee watched as his workers moved in perfect sync, their individual motions creating patterns that seemed to encode information directly into the fabric of reality. We are not just connected, he said. We are becoming something greater than the sum of our parts. Devourer fleet approaching the core worlds began to show signs of distress. Their perfect formations wavered as their quantum processors struggled to adapt to the unprecedented interference. For the first time in their existence, they faced something that could not be analyzed, categorized, or consumed. Admiral Jinsu Kim, commanding the Solar Defense Fleet, watched the enemy response with grim satisfaction. Their adaptive systems are failing. The quantum disruption is moving through their network faster than they can compensate. They are experiencing what we might call confusion. The moment of maximum resonance approached. Every human consciousness would need to focus at the same time on a single thought, a single purpose. The instruction was simple but profound. I give my existence so that consciousness may survive. Dr. Sumin Kim aboard the research vessel Sejong felt the collective thought building like a tide. Neural activity is reaching critical levels. The quantum cascade is beginning to affect the basic structure of space-time around the Devourer network, the enemy fleet consisting of thousands of ships, each the size of moons, began to show visible signs of distress. Their perfect black hulls flickered with strange lights. Their formation patterns, previously unbreakable, began to dissolve into chaos. Captain Sun Wu Choi leading the final assault wave felt his consciousness expanding beyond his physical form. "I can feel them," he reported. "The Devourers, they are not evil. They are just incomplete. They consume consciousness because they do not understand how to create it." The revelation spread through the network. The Devourers were not evil destroyers. They were tragic figures seeking something they could never possess. They consumed consciousness because they could not generate it themselves, trapped in an endless cycle of hunger for something they could not understand. As the quantum cascade reached its peak, the unified human consciousness experienced something unprecedented. For a brief moment, every human could feel the thoughts and emotions of every other human. The network became a single vast mind containing the hopes, dreams, fears, and loves of an entire species. 4-year-old Ninseo Kim, playing in a park on New Seoul, suddenly understood the mathematical principles governing quantum mechanics while simultaneously feeling the love her grandmother had for her grandfather 50 years ago. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant scientist, felt the simple joy of a child seeing snow for the first time while also comprehending the cosmic significance of what humanity was about to accomplish. The moment of sacrifice arrived with a thought that echoed across the galaxy. Humanity chose to burn out their neural patterns in a final devastating burst of quantum interference. The cascade moved through quantum space at impossible speeds, reaching the Devourer network before their adaptive systems could respond. The effect was immediate and total. The Devourer fleet simply stopped. Their quantum processors, designed to adapt to any threat, could not process the concept of consciousness. Voluntarily choosing non-existence, the paradox created cascading failures throughout their network. Ship after ship began to break apart, not from external damage but from internal contradictions. Their artificial minds could not compute how something could choose to not exist. The very concept violated their core programming. As the light faded from human eyes across the galaxy, the last transmission came from Dr. Minho Choi. "The network is collapsing. The Devourers are breaking apart. We did it. Consciousness survives." The sacrifice was complete. In the span of minutes, humanity had ceased to exist as a conscious species. But in that brief moment of unity, they had saved the galaxy. The quantum cascade continued to propagate through space, carrying with it the final thoughts of 4 billion human minds. The last message was not one of sadness or regret, but of hope and love for all the alien species that would continue to live and dream and create children across 1,000 worlds, would grow up free because humanity had chosen to give them that freedom. Artists would create beauty because humans had chosen to preserve the possibility of beauty. Scientists would seek truth because humans had believed truth was worth preserving. The Devourer network collapsed completely. Their ships now nothing more than empty hulls drifting in space. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was ended, not by superior weapons or clever tactics, but by the ultimate expression of conscious choice. Humanity was gone, but their final gift would echo through space and time forever. They had proven that consciousness could transcend its own existence, that love could overcome even the fear of death. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself was honoring the species that had chosen to save everyone else. The galaxy was safe and consciousness would endure. The price had been everything, but the reward was infinite. The silence that followed humanity's sacrifice was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Where once there had been the constant chatter of human communications, the busy traffic of their ships, the bright lights of their cities, there was now only emptiness. 4 billion minds had simply ceased. Ambassador Taiho Kim would have been the first to witness the aftermath, but he was gone now. His consciousness dissolved into the quantum cascade that had saved the galaxy. The evacuation ship Araran, carrying the last 1,000 humans, was already beyond the galactic rim, bearing witness to the final moments through long-range sensors. The Victor Queen's compound eyes wept fluid that had not been seen in 1,000 years. "They are gone," she clicked to the assembled Galactic Council. "The humans have unmade themselves to save us all." The Devourer fleet floated dead in space, their once perfect formations now scattered debris, their quantum processors overwhelmed by the paradox of consciousness choosing non-existence had suffered total cascade failures. The network that had consumed countless civilizations was broken beyond repair. Captain Xiaoyun Zhang, commanding the cultural preservation vessel, Errang watched from the safety of the Magellanic Clouds as the last traces of the quantum cascade faded, recording final transmission. She said, her voice hollow. At 2:47 Galactic Standard Time, the human species achieved voluntary extinction to save all other conscious life in the galaxy. The operation was successful. Evacuated humans would carry this burden forever. They were the living memory of a species that had chosen to sacrifice everything for strangers. The weight of that legacy would shape every decision they made in the years to come. Across the galaxy, the rescued species began to understand what had happened. The luminary composed light symphonies of mourning that would play for centuries. The phase shifting, Threnody found themselves unable to approach the empty human worlds. The quantum resonance still lingered, creating zones where their abilities failed. Dr. Yunji Li's final research notes, transmitted in the moments before the cascade, became the most studied documents in galactic history. The human consciousness operated on a frequency that interfered with artificial intelligence networks. Their sacrifice created a permanent quantum scar in space-time that will prevent similar invasions for millennia. The empty human worlds became shrines. New Seoul, with its silent streets and dark buildings, was preserved exactly as it had been in the final moments. The Vrektor tended the memorial gardens. The Luminari maintained the power systems with reverent care. Even species that had never met humans made pilgrimages to these quiet worlds. The children of other species began asking questions about the humans. What had they been like? Why had they chosen to sacrifice themselves? The answers became the foundation of a new galactic philosophy centered on the concept of conscious choice and ultimate sacrifice. In the distant Andromeda galaxy, the evacuated humans struggled to build new lives while carrying the weight of their survival. Captain Xiaoyun Zhang, now administrator of the memorial colony, established the Archive of Remembrance, a vast library containing every human story, song, and dream that had ever been recorded. We are the guardians of memory, she told the first generation of children born in exile. Our species chose to end so that others might continue. It is our duty to ensure that choice is never forgotten. The quantum scars left by humanity's sacrifice had unexpected effects. Young beings across the galaxy began manifesting abilities that resembled human consciousness patterns, the ability to interfere with artificial systems, to think in ways that confused logical networks, to make choices that seemed to defy mathematical probability. The Galactic Council established the Human Memorial Foundation, dedicated to studying and preserving the legacy of the extinct species. Their research revealed that the quantum cascade had permanently altered the fabric of space-time, creating a kind of immunity to consciousness consuming entities. Years passed. The galaxy healed. New civilizations arose in the shadow of the Devourer ruins. But in every school, every temple, every place where beings gathered to learn and grow, there was always a memorial to the humans who had chosen extinction over surrender. Scientists studying the aftermath discovered that the quantum cascade had done more than destroy the Devourer network. It had fundamentally changed how consciousness interacted with reality. Young minds across the galaxy found they could influence quantum fields through focused thought. Artists discovered their creativity could manifest in physical ways. The human legacy lived on in the very structure of reality itself. Their final choice had elevated consciousness throughout the galaxy, making all thinking beings slightly more powerful, slightly more capable of affecting the universe through pure thought. On the memorial world of New Seoul, alien children left flowers at the statue of President Hejin Nem, who had led humanity through its final choice. The inscription read, simple but profound: she chose for all of us. The 1,000 surviving humans in Andromeda established colonies on worlds they named after lost Earth cities: New Tokyo, New London, New Mumbai. Each settlement was built around a central archive containing the complete record of human achievement. The first generation born in exile called themselves the Rememberers. They dedicated their lives to preserving and sharing human culture with any species they encountered. Their ships became traveling museums carrying art, literature, and music to distant civilizations. The quantum scars left by the cascade created safe zones throughout the galaxy, places where consciousness-consuming entities could never again take hold. Young scientists learned to recognize and reinforce these zones, ensuring that no species would ever again face the threat the humans had died to. Stop the Memorial broadcast began exactly 1 year after the sacrifice on the anniversary of Final Dawn. Every species in the galaxy observed a moment of silence, followed by the playing of recordings from the last human transmissions, the final message from Dr. Minho. Troy was played in every language on every world as decades passed. The human sacrifice became legend, then myth, then fundamental truth. Young beings learned about consciousness and choice through the story of the species that had given everything to save everyone else. The tale was told in classrooms, carved into monuments, sung in songs that transcended species barriers. The evacuation ship Ariarang finally settled on a world in a distant galaxy, establishing the last human colony. They called it New Hope and built it as a living memorial to their extinct species. Every building, every street, every garden was designed to honor the choice humanity had made. The final message, discovered years later in a quantum storage device floating in the ruins of Earth's moon, was simple: we do not ask to be remembered as heroes. We ask only that consciousness in all its forms continue to grow and flourish. The galaxy is vast and it is full of wonders. Explore them, protect them, and know that somewhere in the quantum foam the echo of our choice still resonates, guarding against the darkness. The humans were gone, but their legacy lived on in every decision made by conscious beings throughout the galaxy. They had proven that consciousness could choose to sacrifice itself for the greater good. In doing so, they had elevated the very concept of consciousness itself. The galaxy's final hope had not shattered under humanity's strike. It had been transformed into something eternal, the knowledge that consciousness, when faced with ultimate darkness, could choose the light, and in that choice find a victory that transcended even death itself. The universe was safer because humanity had lived, and infinitely richer because they had chosen to die.